As India prepares to increase its infrastructure sector by an ambitious 8% annually, it paves the way for a vicious illegal trade for a mineral dubbed as India's gold: sand. Illegal sand mining is occurring right across the country and is protected by a string of criminal gangs, known as the Sand Mafia, who work hand in glove with political and business authorities to cover up the issue. This has had severe environmental ramifications, eroding riverbanks and coastlines, subsequently causing flooding and imbalance to coastal biodiversity. This sort of activity can pose a serious danger to anyone who protests against it, including the environmental journalists who are expected to educate and advocate for the improvement of the planet and to uncover the truth behind such controversial issues. Environmental controversies, such as this one, are complex, often implicating influential authoritarian figures or enterprises, and can expose criminal activities and corruption. According to India's Construction Industry Development Council, 500 million tonnes of sand is used for infrastructural builds in India annually. This amount is limited by environmentalist pressure to protect ecosystems that become threatened by sand mining. With a boom in infrastructure expected for the next 10 years, the current sand supply quota will be unsustainable for the future, resulting in a 106.4% increase in the illegal mining of major minerals since 2015. It has been reported up to $5.6 billion worth of minerals were extracted from beach sand and exported between 2013 and 2016, causing unprecedented erosion of coastlines and the extinction of several ecosystems. Having such a devastating impact on the environment and the high level of police and government corruption involved in the covering up of illegal sand mining, the issue has gained a wealth of media attention, putting journalists in the firing line for vicious attacks carried out by the Sand Mafia. The National Crime Records Bureau registered 142 attacks against environmental journalists reporting on Indian sand mines from 2015 to 2018. Notably, it is suspected 7 journalists were killed in response to articles published on this issue. Consequently, many news organisations aren't willing to send their own staff to report on the sand mines and are reluctant to accept freelance stories on the issue out of fear of targeted backlash. Coverage on the issue is often sparse and prejudiced out of fear of serious backlash from those involved. Indian journalist Aditi Tandon, who has reported on sand mining since 2013, has found that her probing into allegations of major business interests damaging the local environment has resulted in stalking and various types of harassment, some of it reportedly directed by the head of one of the mining companies and by police officials. She believes that despite being the world's largest democracy, India is too often a dangerous place for environmental journalists and needs to include laws that safeguard and protect the freedom of information, needing to conduct more in-depth investigations into attacks made on journalists, particularly those involving police or government authorities.
It always suits governments to muzzle the press, be it India, be it anywhere. But I want to underscore one point about our country, and that is violence against journalists has been a routine. For instance, if you look at certain data that is available in public in India, the Press Council of India, which is the overarching regulator for the print industry in India, recently put out a report that said 80 journalists had been killed starting 1990 in India, and only in one case was the conviction secured. So you see the impunity towards crimes against journalists in the country is high. And the real problem is lack of law, a standalone law to protect the journalists, and then the lack of implementation of whatever little laws do exist.
With demand for sand in India only increasing and the sand mafia becoming increasingly more violent towards those who protest or publish articles on the issue, journalists urge the Indian government to take active steps to protect environmental journalists and their right to publish speech on the serious environmental issue. Until then, environmental journalists must fight not only an environmental battle, but a battle for their own safety and protection.